Can you believe it? You've got just 3 weeks to go in your SuperCoach season, and whether you're going to win it all and get yourself some cash, beat your mates, or just get a personal best ranking, here at the Coaches Panel, we are back again, heading into round 22 to give you my top 10 trade targets for this upcoming round. Let's be honest, any trade you make right now is a forever trade. You shouldn't be in the luxurious position of 1 or 2 week hits. You're looking for the best of the best that you can afford. And on this week's episode, I want to make sure I give you the best options that you got to get. Find you some uniques and make sure we hit some fixture options along the way that are going to help you succeed in SuperCoach over these final 3 weeks of the year. Where has this year gone? Crazy, right? Anyway, my number one trade target. He's been a top 3 for the last couple of weeks. I want to keep putting him there, purely because I think he's from a price point, still attainable, but also a guy that is getting stuff away from you. Nat Miller is my number one trade target this week. When you contrast him to other defenders over the last 5 rounds, he's 17 points per game better off. I know it's a little bit tighter in the last 3 weeks, but it just goes to show the recent history of what Naz is doing is significant separator from almost any other defender you've got available to you. And the crazy thing is, it's still only, 66, 67% of the top 1% of super coaches that have their hands on him. So if you're that 33% without him, you are nervous week in, week out. Because unlike, say, a Brody Grundy, who's another 100,000, who's almost unattainable now for non-owners, and you're really hoping in the aggregate to be able to level it out in terms of how you split your dollars. At this price point, Naz is still financially attainable and is so much better than anybody else at the moment. He's got the Tigers this week. Already earlier this season, he's dropped a 110, and that was in a different role. I just don't see any Richmond player being able to go with him. This could get nasty. Then he's got the Bombers, who are the 4th easiest team for inside mids over the last 5 weeks in SuperCoach, and he's already got a 134 the last time he played him in 2024. And then it's the Giants. He's already got a 133 on them this year. And Bedford doesn't get used to tag anymore. That's just not the rotation. So an O'Halloran might try to get that opportunity. But we've seen Naz now time and time again, when opposition players come to him, he just exploits them at either end of the ground. Either he's got that license to roam forward, kick goals, and get a difficult matchup that no one can match him for speed and for power, or he just goes behind the ball back into the playmaking role that he's had for the better part of over half the year. And he was a premium defender there anyway. I just think this is the guy that, if there was anyone I didn't want to be without for the final 3 weeks in SuperCoach, he's the guy. I know others think differently, and that's the beauty of SuperCoach, is you can view it differently. But given his form, the gap between him and the best defenders, his price point in contrast to other upper end players, and the fact that how unique he is compared to those other players, I just want every slice of Naz, and maybe I'm just secretly channeling he can get to the Crom in 2025. 26 actually. Speaking of Crom, my number 2 trade target is their current skipper, Jordan Dawson. He's coming off the back of a 149 last week against the Hawks. And we talk about a player that's got a couple of things that are really going for owners and prospective owners like maybe you could be. Number 1 is he's in a pretty unique ownership perspective at the moment. Like 1 in 4 across the formats own him. Not even 6 out of 10 have their hands on him in the top 1%. So that's a great thing. That's on the more unique side for a player of his scoring pedigree. The other thing that sits alongside that is he's got an outstanding matchup over the next couple of weeks, and he's in ripping form. Like, he's currently in the top 10 for averages over the last 5 weeks. He's going 120, and he's the 6th best midfielder, and he's about to walk into some outstanding matchups, like unbelievably good matchups, like the 3 best inside midfield matchups over the last 5 weeks. That's who he's got. It is scary good. They got the Eagles this week. He got a 138 on them earlier this year. They are the best matchup for inside mids right now. Then they've got the Pies. He got a 132 on them earlier this year at the MCG. It's their pre-finals warm-up for the Crows, and they're the number 3 easiest midfield matchup to go. And then it's North, that other great matchup. I know for some there's a little concern about that. Maybe he'll get managed through this game or rested through the sub or something like that. Absolutely viable, especially if the Crows win their next two. They do secure a top 2 spot. So that is absolutely a flag that could land. But by that point in time, Jordan's heading into Brownlow conversation. Do they just keep him going? I'm not so sure. I think they'll play him anyway. They won't want to mess too much. He's got an outstanding fixture, and that's what you're looking for at this time of year. Great ceiling. Well, Dawson's got it. Great fixture. Well, it's as good as it's going to get for inside mids. Tick. And on the more unique side, tick. Yeah. And even if they manage him out of the inside or the midfield role, chuck him forward, he's still a dangerous threat. I don't see anyone in any of those teams that could stop him. He's the midfielder that right now I'd take all those price points, fixtures, uniqueness in contrast to others. Yes. I'm in on that. Maybe it's because you've got a Lachie Neale. You've got to jump and make the trade off. Well, relatively speaking, it's only about 40, 50K off a Lachie Neale. So that could be the trade. If you don't want to trade into a midfielder this week, maybe you don't want to move into a defender. You want to get something either different in the flex spot or something completely different through some other positions. Let me give you something wild that you might not have thought of, but let me hit you up with my number 3 trade target. Tristan Cherry. Yeah, the X-Man. This is a sneaky good pick. Like, he's 150, 160K cheaper than Grundy. So it's a lot of coin if you've got the 2 trades. You've got to look at a combination approach, not just in isolation. And there's some great fixtures that do sit through here for Tristan Cherry. Again, maybe you've got a Jackson, you can loop him forward and throw something into that ruck line. Or you've got a Neale and you're happy to play a little bit of dual position movements and open up the flex spot, and all of a sudden you can get into another ruckman because they are cooking. If you can get a couple of rucks at the moment, Gawn, English, Marshall's been outstanding. Grundy's been outstanding. Like, having 3 rucks is a pretty good strategy. We talked about this all the way back in December, that maybe that's the best way to utilize flex. And for flexibility reasons, it's probably not. But for scoring, yeah, it's cooking. Anyway, he's got the Giants this week. They are the 3rd easiest ruck team to come up against. And he just gave up a 200 to Tim English last week. So that's good news. After that, he's got the Tigers. He's already got a 150 on them earlier this season. And then does get a little bit tougher, both on a historical pedigree and a DVP perspective. It's Riley O'Brien and the Adelaide Crows. Now, I know just moments ago I discounted the probability of Dawson being managed through the ruck or run in the run and the role that he's got. And it's still a risk and a concern, I'll say. But I think there's actually a bigger, more compelling case for the Crows to go, you know what? Rob is super critical to us. He's carried a big workload. Let's give him 10 days off and give him McAndrew an opportunity in there. Especially, again, if the Crows win the next 2, it could be a dead fixture. If that lands, it could really fire. But regardless, the next 2 matchups are fire. And we're at this point of the season where it is rare we get more than 2 great matchups with just 3 weeks ago. So if you get 2 great and he's got 2 ripping ruck matchups, that's almost enough to proceed. And with the one challenging one to end the year, I'm happy to take that gauntlet. He's unique in the top 1%. Just 14% have him. That's really lowly owned. If you want that separation place, you want a guy that's got a great history. Yes, he's coming back from suspension. He'll be fresh. He'll be ready to prove a point. I can see these next 2 weeks especially being outstanding for his owners. Then let's talk about my number 4 trade target. He's going to be one of the most popular trade-in guys over the next couple of weeks, and it's purely because ton run is on. Jeremy Cameron is my number 4 trade target. In the last 3 weeks, he's really boosted that average. He's gone at 125 in the last 3 weeks. That's number 15 across all of SuperCoach, and only Luke Jackson, as forward eligible, has a higher average than him. He's got the Bombers this week, and this could get messy. Absolutely messy. He's already got a 116 on them earlier this year. And it's just evident, not just in the gameplay of Geelong over the last fortnight, but even the commentary now coming out of their coaching staff about individual honours and team honours aren't actually in a collision point with each other. I could just see Geelong continuing to feed Jeremy Cameron, and that does two great things. Number one, brings him into the game at every possible opportunity, which is great for SuperCoach, but also I think it actually just forces up opposition teams to panic a little bit more. And generally when that panic sets in, you're not at your best defensive spaces, and that only is a good thing from a Geelong. So Essendon this week, they've just got no one that can stop him. They're the number 4 best team for key position forwards to play against. I do not see anyone that can prevent it. Then you've got a Sydney Swans matchup. Okay, that's a little bit tougher on paper, but again, politely, there's nothing really to play for. I know nobody wants to be the team they kick the 100 on, but it's not great. And then you've only got to go back not even 2 months. The final matchup of the year, they've got Richmond. They've talked about how good that Richmond matchup is a number of times over this series. A 131 on them earlier this year. And again, they've got some decent tools that can do some damage there. But again, by this junction of the season, you could just see everything inside 50 coming towards Jezza. And if he doesn't get it, he's running around the back to be able to get that handball receive and to be able to take that shot on goal. It is going to be Jeremy Cameron for the next 3 weeks. And I can see that 125 average of the last 3 weeks continuing on the next 3. And if you get 2 of those ceiling games like he did against North a few weeks ago, yeah, this could get nasty for non-owners. And then my number 5 trade target for you, Rowan Marshall. He's coming off the back of a 144 last week. Just the 1 in 4 coaches have him inside the top percent, and it's not even 10% overall. So right on that unique space with great ceiling and an outstanding matchup. Go back and listen to the round 21 strategy session that's available on this channel. Pig Mentality talked about just how good this St Kilda fixture is that we want to get our hands on. We want to get a share and a slice of at least 2 or 3 Saints. He's got the Tigers this week. Number 5 best ruck matchup in the game over the last 5 weeks. And his last 3 games against them, he's gone a 117, a 126, and a 147. That is outstanding. Then he's got the Bombers. The last time he played them, he got a 135. And right now, there is no better matchup for rucks than the Bombers. And then it's the Giants. I've already talked about them when we talked about Tristan Cherry a little while ago. But they're the 3rd best ruck matchup. And he gave up that big 200 just the week before. So we talked about with Jordan Dawson, you're looking for 2, maybe 3 outstanding matchups. It's hard to get 3, but if you can get 3, get on. And that's what we're going to see with Rowan Marshall here. They're trying to get his value up. I expect him to be out the door next year. With TDK rolling in, they're trying to get that value of currency up around him. This is an outstanding play. And even with Max Heath in the team, he's just dominating. He's got the best ruck matchup and the best ruck run home you can imagine. Jump on. So my top 5, Naz, Dawson. Yeah, wild, I know, right? Then it's Cherry, giving you some uniques at the top end. Then it's Cameron and Marshall. Let's start to open up the gates a little bit more. Probably the best unique forward you could get right now is Brian Meyers. Got that 110 average over the last 5 weeks. And he's got the Bombers this week, who again, while they might try to service through Jeremy Cameron, he hasn't dropped under 90 in his last 3 games against them. He's got 100 already this season against them. And just the way he gets involved in the game with the scoring through transition, getting involved in the score involvements and impacting the scoreboard himself, I can still see him delivering a really nice score. A little bit at a cheaper price point than maybe some of those other upper end premium forwards you might be looking at. This is a pure unique strategy play that you're looking for. He's got a 135 on the Tigers earlier this year. That's who he's got that final matchup of the year. I've got 2 kind of bookend matchups with the Swans, the more difficult one in between. I just love how he's going about it. And if you just kind of want to create some separation with everybody going towards Jeremy Cameron, and understandably so, you want to keep a unique ownership option that could still pop a 130 on any given week with a pretty outstanding fixture. Brian is the guy to be able to step into that space. Let's play a bit more protection mode for you now with a couple of the next picks. And then I've got one last unique that's got a little bit of risk, but one last unique to get you. My number 7 trade target is Marcus Bontempelli, under $700,000. Only Brodie Grundy's scoring more than him over the last 5. And I'd put Brodie in this episode, but his price point politely makes him financially unattainable for owners. I just don't see a coach that has the justification to be able to spend that much money on one player. There's just not that cash generation around. Otherwise, he'd probably make the list. But he is in ripping form at the moment. There's just 4% of coaches in the top 1% that don't have him. And he's the third highest owned player in that top 1%. Only Baz and Nick Dacos are in more teams. He's got the Ds coming up. The last time he played, we got a 182. It could be an outstanding and similar matchup. Then he's coming up against the Eagles. They're the best matchup for inside mids over the last 5 weeks. And if they go bang, bang with victories in those 2 games, they bring themselves up against Fremantle in the final game of the year, where it's a neutral matchup on the fixture analysis, but he could be playing for that critical finals berth. And he's got a great recent history against them, regardless of what's coming, whether it be someone to play a more defensive-minded role on him in this Fremantle midfield. The fact is that if they are going to make finals, it is going to be off his back. And so if they're going to get there, it's through him. 162, 102, and 182. Oh, a couple of 160-plus scores on that history. I don't want to go against him. I really, really don't. It's not cheap, but it's not the most expensive guy in the formats at the moment. You don't want to go against him. That is as much as I could say. Jack Sinclair is my number 8 trade target. Got a ripping run of form at the moment. He's coming off 4 straight tons. 3 of them, in fact, the last 3 are all 120 plus. And he's got a ripping fixture to boot. Again, remembering Naz is getting all the attention. Jack's getting that freed space. He's got a 162 against Richmond earlier this year. That's who he's got this week. They're number 2 easiest for designated kickers and for general defenders, and 6th easiest for players coming off that transition halfback role. Great news for him. It's not great on paper, his history against Essendon, who he's got the following week, but they are cooked as a team. They are the easiest team to score against in SuperCoach right now. And I can absolutely see him feasting. Despite the DVP not being favourable in his eyes, I can still see him absolutely tearing it to shreds against the injured under-18 Bombers. And then lastly, he's got the Giants. Go back to round 5. He's already got a 108 against them, which is great news. But there is one team you want to be coming up against that is gifting the most points to players off that wing and halfback role. Want to guess who that team is? Yeah, it's the Giants. There is an unbelievable fixture here for Jack Sinclair. All the variables scream this last 3 weeks of 120 should continue for the next couple. And to get him at under 550k is an absolute ripping bargain for coaches. Jump on, my friends. Jack Sinclair. I think this is a great pick. Last 2 to go. Let's play an absolute straight bat and then hit you with something unique. But the straight bat is Nick Dacos, my number 9 trade target. Only Brodie Grundy has a higher average than him in the last 3 weeks. He's the number 2 ranked player by average. And he's got the Hawks this week. Look, his last 3 games against them were all 100 plus with a top of a 116. It does seem to be that Finn McGuinness as the tag option has kind of faded out of their ecosystem. And we have seen teams really beat up on the Hawks through that midfield role. I just don't love anyone that can stop him. And we've seen, even when that happens, then he goes back behind the ball, interchanges with his brother, becomes the playmaker and the generator off halfback, and still finds a way to score. His work ethic, his skill, the way that the team play through him, and his just athletic capacity and high footy IQ. I just don't want to go against him in this next couple of weeks. The week after that is actually a matchup I'd be a little nervous about. Like I said, I want to give you a guy that has got 2 good matchups, which he's got either side of this Crows matchup in round 23. And the reason I say it's bad is his last 3 against them is an average of 90. So it's not great. But this is a guy that could take a season away from you in just 3 weeks. From an ownership perspective, I'm all for creating separation, but I'm not too sure based on his history and form and what a couple of these matchups are, he's got a couple of ripping ones through there. I don't want to get hurt by what I know, and what I know is Nick Dacos, much like Marcus Bontempelli, is almost impossible to negate and someone I'd rather not bet against. And then he's got the Ds. He's already played them once this year. The matchup was fine. We got that Ed Langdon tag, but Goodwin's gone, and I don't see that coming again. There's really no benefit for them in doing that. The last time he played them, after that one, so second last time, he played them in round 24, much like he will in this year. How did he go just the 12 months earlier? 186. 186. He smoked it. My goodness me. I don't see a Langdon tag coming again. That feels like a Goodwin special. They'll be preparing for it for sure, but I just don't see that one coming. I don't want to get hurt by what I know, and what I know is Nick Dacos is absolute Supercoach royalty already. And then the last option I've got for you. I'm trying to find that unique marker for you that's in ripping form, that's got a good ceiling, and isn't going to hurt you with a basement 70 or a 60, because that's going to sting. Let's go and give you a player that is owned by just 29 coaches in the top 1%. Just 29 coaches. He's got an average of 118 in his last 5. He's got 11 tons in his last 12 games, and that 12th game is a score of 94. And there's some 140 plus scores through there. Have I got you intrigued on who I'm talking about? Let's hit you up. Light it up. My number 10 trade target, Finn Callahan. He's got North Melbourne this week, and he doesn't have a personal good history against them. But right now, they are bleeding points to inside midfielders. Over the last 5 weeks, they're the number 2 ranked inside midfield matchup that you want to get your hands on. It is an extraordinary one, and I don't see any of the North Melbourne's midfielders being able to stay with him, given his work rate and just the caliber of cattle that they've got to sit in that spot. Then it's the Suns. You just got to go back to round 15, the last time he played, and he got a 113 on them. I do not see a tag coming his way. And then the last game of the year, this is, again, a bit nervous, but you're looking for separation. He's got a Windhager date, without any doubt in my mind. He's got an 82 on them earlier this year. It is a giant flag. I'm absolutely sharing that flat out, where I go, I like the 2, I like the history, I like the uniqueness. I hate the final round matchup. But if you're wanting somebody, if you're in that top 1%, you're like, who is one guy that if I can jag a couple of 120s, maybe you've got the Dacos, the Dawson, the Bontempelli, Brayshaw, Butters, all these guys. You're a Neil owner. You've got limited funds and you're like, I need a separator. Who is the separator that is not going to hurt me? I think it's Finn Callahan. And I think it could start as early as this week with another 130 plus score heading his way. But those are my top 10 trade targets this week in Supercoach. Who are you trading into? Can you trade into anybody? I'd love to know. Comment below if you've got some trades left. What are you doing with them this week? And if not, how are you covering the Lachie Neale absence? Comment below and let me know. If you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, make sure you do so. If I've named one player you are trading into this week, terms and conditions state you've got to like the video. Right throughout this channel, throughout the season, we've been doing an AFL fantasy version of these trade targets. It is available for you now already on the channel. You can check that out, as well as this week's strategy session with myself and Mini Monk. Make sure you go and check it out. Hey, thanks so much for tuning in. We wish you well heading into round 22. We hope all your moves work nicely for you, and we can't wait to be back with you again next week, helping you in your Supercoach and fantasy footy teams.